On a cold October evening, the little town of Westdale was settling down the way it always did. Shops closing early, the last bus sighing through Main Street, porch lights flicking on one by one. Nothing unusual. Nothing loud. Just the same quiet town breathing into another night. And inside a small white house on Willow Road, a man named Daniel Hart tied his shoelaces, slipped into his old brown jacket, and told his wife he'd be back in a little while. He said it casually. No tension in his voice. No hint of goodbye. Just a man stepping out for a walk like he had done 100 times before. But that was the last moment anyone ever saw him. He stepped outside. The door clicked shut. And Daniel Hart simply vanished. No warning. No sign. No sound. Just gone. Emily, his wife, didn't panic at first. Daniel took evening walks often. Sometimes he cleared his head after long workdays, sometimes he walked the dog, sometimes he just needed air. But that night, minutes stretched into hours. And hours into dawn. By morning, the coffee had gone cold untouched. And the bed remained exactly as it had been the night before. That's when fear began creeping in. A quiet fear at first. But one that grew louder every hour Daniel stayed gone. She called his phone. No answer. She drove around the neighborhood. Nothing. By evening, the police were notified. Flashlights scanned the woods. Search dogs sniffed along the river. Neighbors whispered on porches. And just like that, Westdale wasn't the same sleepy town anymore. The letter no one expected. 2 weeks passed. No footprints. No signs of a struggle. No credit card use. Not a single clue. Until the morning Emily entered Daniel's workshop. A place she rarely went. The smell of wood shavings still hanging in the air. That's where she found it. A sealed envelope tucked beneath wooden planks. Her name written on it in Daniel's handwriting. Her breath shook as she opened it. Inside was a short message. 9 lines. No explanation. Just heartache. Emily, I'm sorry. I never meant to leave like this. Protect Lily. Tell her I love her. And please, don't look for me. The words felt like a punch. Not because he wrote them, but because something in the way he wrote them sounded afraid. Emily showed the letter to the police. No one knew what to make of it. Why would a loving father beg his family not to find him? What was he scared of? What was he running from? No one knew. And the case slowly sank into the cold files of Westdale's police station. Lily grew up with memories instead of a father. Birthdays with one chair always empty. School plays where her mother clapped twice as loud to fill the silence. Moments where a little girl kept hoping a familiar figure would walk through the gym doors. Emily learned to live in pieces. One part of her moving forward. The other forever stuck on that October night. 12 years passed. and the world assumed Daniel Hart had become another unsolved mystery. Another town story people told young kids on long winter nights. Until one afternoon, the phone rang. It was the sheriff. His voice was heavy, measured, careful. "Emily, we found something." Her heart stopped. 12 years of fear came crashing back. They found a wallet. Old, weathered, covered in dust. It was discovered in an abandoned cabin 60 miles from town. Inside was Daniel's ID. And a photograph. A recent one. He was older. Bearded. Alive. The sheriff told her they were reopening the case. They believed Daniel had been living in hiding. And they had no idea why. But Emily did. She remembered the letter. The warning. The fear behind his handwriting. Something had chased Daniel. Something had cornered him. Something had forced him to disappear. And Emily was about to uncover the truth. Emily drove to the cabin with the sheriff. The place felt untouched by time. A ghost trapped in the forest. Inside, dust covered the furniture. Spider webs clung to the windows. But the stove was clean. The blankets folded. The bed made. Someone had lived there. Recently. Carefully. On the table was a notebook. Filled with dates. Diagrams. Names. And symbols Emily didn't understand. One page was marked with a single sentence. "They found me again." 2 weeks later, hikers reported a man living deep in the forest. Silent. Alone. Avoiding everyone. When police arrived, he ran. Terrified. Desperate. They cornered him near the river. He turned. Hands raised. And Emily gasped. It was Daniel. But not the Daniel she remembered. His eyes carried fear. His body carried exhaustion. His heart carried secrets. When Emily whispered his name, he broke. Collapsed. Sobs shaking his entire body. For 12 years he had been running. But the truth was finally ready to be told. Daniel told the story slowly. Piece by piece. He had witnessed something. Something criminal. Dangerous. Something powerful people wanted buried. He had been working late one night. Delivering materials to a warehouse. When he saw a crime he was never meant to see. He went to the police. But the corruption ran deep. The people involved were untouchable. Powerful. Protected. A warning came. A threat. Leave town or lose everything. He didn't believe them. Until he started noticing men watching their home. Following him. Driving past the house at night. He panicked. He knew he couldn't fight them. He couldn't protect his family if he stayed. So he left. He left to keep them alive. Emily cried. Not because he left, but because she finally understood. He sacrificed himself, his identity, his life, his happiness, to keep his family safe. Daniel apologized. Not for disappearing, but for the pain it caused. For the birthdays he missed. For the moments he lost. And Emily forgave him. Not because it was easy, but because love isn't always about staying. Sometimes, love is about leaving. To protect the ones who can't protect themselves. Daniel testified in a federal investigation. The criminals were exposed. Arrested. The threat finally ended. And after 12 long years, Daniel came home. For real. Not as a memory. Not as a mystery. But as a father. A husband. A survivor. The family rebuilt their lives. Slowly. Patiently. Gratefully. And Westdale learned something. That sometimes the greatest stories are not about heroes, but about men who choose sacrifice. Men who choose love. Men who choose family over freedom. And Daniel Hart was one of them.